Hello, everybody. This is Jimmy Stevens, owner of Rocky Mountain Live, and I'm here with the latest edition of our Peak Performer series. Today, we have a very special guest. His name is Scott Diehl, and he is the leader of Digital Hobo. So, Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course, all the people who support Rocky Mountain Live right out of the gate are going to be friends of the platform for years to come. And I talked to Irene Poole last week, and she's working with you on the upcoming show we'll talk about today. And I mentioned to her how when I started in music, some of the first shows I ever put on as a promoter were in collaboration with Surfrider Foundation out in Tofino. So when I got here and started really diving into the music scene, I was really stoked to see you doing what you do and the biosphere working with you. So I've been looking forward to this episode for quite a while. So I really appreciate your time today.
All right, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do that. So we are Rocky Mountain Live, and you're a huge part of the Bow Valley music scene. So I asked this to everybody right off the hop. Tell us about how the Rocky Mountains have shaped you as both a person and a performer.
Well, I'd have to say that, mountains have always been part of my life and part of my family's life also. And, without getting too spiritual and woo-woo about it, I feel more grounded when I'm living in a mountain environment. And when I travel and when I live abroad, I like to kind of gravitate to those places. So I feel at home here in the Bow Valley, and it creates a spark and creates some creativity in me that I hope shows up in my music.
Yeah, that's great. It most definitely does. I completely agree with that. I always feel more grounded living out west. The oceans and the mountain just have something about them to me. I'm originally from Ontario, but I feel kind of out of place when I'm back in those areas now. So, Digital Hobo is a very cool and unique project. It's your musical persona, and you've worked with many different musicians over your now three albums. So, tell us about how this project originally came together and the process that you go through creating those albums.
Okay, probably the best way to answer that is to tell you what a digital hobo is. So why don't we start with the second part? So a hobo is a person that always lives kind of on the outskirts of town, and they are always given the hard jobs. So they're kind of not really in the community, but beside it. And the other thing about hobos is they're not afraid to speak truth to power. So they'll say the things that many of the other people that live in the community cannot or will not say. And there's a great tradition of hobos, particularly in Americana and American culture. So I think of people like Woody Guthrie. I think of, the mythical character Tom Joad from the John Steinbeck novel, and those types of personalities. And they do serve a really important function within society in that they can, speak the truth and kind of provide people another point of view that they may not be exposed to. So that's kind of the hobo part. And the digital part comes from I like to I like to think that we still need hobos in our internet culture because much of our internet culture is kind of, the content is determined by the big tech companies. So companies like Meta and Google really determine what the public dialogue is by what they allow to appear on their platforms. So the digital part really comes from that. And there are many musicians that have um, social activist messages like myself that are kind of not given a lot of help from the algorithms. So that's the other aspect of it is the digital hobo is someone that kind of lives on the outskirts of the digital world and ekes out a living and ekes out an audience almost in spite of these big tech platforms. So yeah, that's how I would answer that question. We can get more into the process of, how I make music in the subsequent questions.
So yeah, that's a great answer you just gave us there. It's great to know exactly what a digital hobo means to you. And yeah, I completely agree with everything you said about how the music industry works and Instagram and all the meta platforms kind of control that. So very great answer on that, and that's great to know. So you do a lot of environmental work around the community, and you have an amazing event coming up at the end of the month called Jam for Jasper in association with the Biosphere Institute, also featuring Irene Poole and Rylan Morans. So this happens at the Band Springs Hotel on May 31st, and there's a lot happening at this event. So it's your album release for Climate Stories, your new album, education on fire resilience. It's a fundraiser. So tell us everything that you want people to know about this awesome event.
Okay, maybe a good place to start would be I think it's kind of a special relationship that Digital Hobo has developed with Biosphere. We both firmly believe that there's a role for art to play in environmental education and in activism. So, what we've done is we've put together an evening that has some great live music, and some live music that is, written about and in support of environmental issues. But at the same time, we wanted to have a very strong wildfire resilience component to it. So interspersed with the sets that the live band is going to be playing, we've got speakers that are great speakers. We've got a guy named Ryan Bray who's coming down from Jasper, and he's a wildfire survivor from the town of Jasper, and he's going to tell his story, which is super compelling because he had to evacuate himself and his family, and he recalls like minute by minute what that's like, and it's really helpful, I think, for all of us to put ourselves in the shoes of someone that is evacuated from a wildfire, because it just helps us understand what's going on in Jasper and how we can better prepare as residents in the Bow Valley for if and when that were to happen. So we've got Ryan speaking to us on that. We've also got Carrie Martins, who's the fire chief in the town of Banff. And Carrie's going to be talking about some of the steps that the town is taking to improve their own readiness for fire, including all the fire smarting efforts. And so she'll be chatting about that. And then finally, we've got Sarah Elamiji, our MLA, who represents us in the legislature. And she's a great speaker and very inspirational. And she'll be talking to us about the community aspects of fire resilience and what we can do as communities to help prevent and mitigate those events. So, and then combined with that, of course, is the music aspect. So, my new album is called Climate Stories. I've been working on it for a couple of years, and it's a joint effort, a collaboration between myself, the songwriter, and a bunch of people that are really involved in climate change. Some of those people are climate activists, so they actually advocate for policy changes and political changes to help mitigate climate change. Other people are climate scientists and people like Ryan that are climate refugees. So each one of the 10 tracks on the album is a little snippet of their stories. And I think it's going to be a very impactful and fun evening as we combine music with speakers, and also opportunities to network, because there'll be a break and people can gather together out in the lobby and just chat about what they're seeing and what they're experiencing. So I hope that folks can come out to this. It's on May 31st from 7 to 10 p.m. And it's at the Banff Springs Hotel Conference Center. You can get tickets through the Biosphere website, or you can just go and Google Jam for Jasper. And the funds that we raise for this are going to go toward a lessons learned session where we get Jasper people together with people in Banff and Canmore and try and understand how we can better be prepared for wildfires in the future.
Yeah, that's an amazing event. Yeah, that Jasper fire last year is a big wake up to everybody who lives in the mountains, I think. We have the wildfires every year, but when we lose a big part of the town like that, that's very devastating and puts the rest of us a little bit on notice. As I said in the opening there, I used to live in Tofino, and one time we woke up in the middle of the night to a tsunami warning, and everybody was evacuating town, and that was a bit of a risk out there that we didn't respect as much as we probably should have until that happened. So yeah, I've seen that happen in the past where we got to take notice of these things and really be prepared for them. So good on you for doing that. And all of your music is in relation to environmental and social issues with a mission to amplify the voices of humans and ecosystems while holding space for their rights. That's straight from your bio. So tell us about what social and environmental justice means to you and how you think music can help spread the word, educate, and create impact on these topics.
Okay, that's a great question. Um, I should preface it by saying that not all my songs are about social and environmental issues. Many of them are, but every once in a while I like to just have fun. And I'll write a good old-fashioned love song and or a blues song and just have a little fun in music because that's really what it's about. But the social and environmental part of it, um, I think that we're in a really pivotal time here in the history of the human race where climate change is a key issue and a key phenomenon that we need to get a handle on. And I like to say that climate change, it's really a social justice issue disguised as a weather phenomenon. So many of the things that we're seeing now play out in the last 20 years have been, floods, hurricanes, wildfires, where people that are disadvantaged actually bear the brunt of these events far more than people in advantaged communities. And I'm speaking about, the north-south divide worldwide, but I'm also speaking about the economic divides that are in all of our communities. So, if people are subjected to a flood and they lose their home, uh, poor people have a lot more trouble recovering from that than do people with means. So, the disadvantaged people bear the brunt of these catastrophes, but the advantaged countries and the advantaged people are actually far more of the cause because their emissions per capita are much higher. So we call this, climate injustice, and it's something that I feel strongly about it, and I feel like as a musician and as an artist and an activist, it's something that I want to address in my music. And there are certain themes in climate stories that do just that.
Yeah, that's the perfect segue into the next question here. So you've already released three songs off the new album, War on Climate, Great Granddaughter, and Heat Zone. So the album officially drops Friday, May 16th, so just a few days after this interview is released. What are the main themes that people will find on this album?
What are the main themes? Well, I guess, first of all, there's an overarching theme. I think the overarching theme of that album is we need to start by kind of feeling the grief because we've all, in some way, shape, or form, lost something in because of climate change. So we need to be in touch with that grief and to acknowledge it both personally and publicly. But then we need to take the next step. We need to take that grief and then morph it into, I call it outrage and action. So we need to feel outraged, but we can't just, be angry and do nothing. We need to turn it into action. So many of the songs on the album kind of point gently for the listener into ways that they can take action and help us recover from these climate emergencies. And then I guess specifically, if you wanted to get down into particular songs, there's one song on there called "Talking in the Greenhouse," and it kind of makes the case that we need to just talk more as families, as community members, about climate change and kind of incorporate it into our normal everyday lexicon so that we can start to address it. So I really like that song. I think it's a positive song with a good message. Another one that seems to be getting legs, and this is one that Irene Poole sings on the album. It's called Great Granddaughter. And that song's all about intergenerational responsibility. So this idea that, you and I, Jimmy, are alive today, and we're going to have kids, grandkids, and great grandkids. And we should actually be taking actions today that give them a more positive future. So, this idea that we're responsible to our ancestors that aren't born yet. So there's a couple of examples of the themes that I think are are addressed by the album, and if you listen to all 10 tracks, you might find more.
Yeah, that's great. I've loved all the music that you've put out that I've heard so far. I took a little bit of a dive into your tunes one day, and yeah, I love the music. It's not just got a great message, but it is really good music as well. So I think that your music should be out there a lot more than it is. Like you said in the beginning, it's a little bit difficult for a lot of people to get exposure. That's what I'm trying to help people do actually through Rocky Mountain Live, is just give more exposure to people who don't get it. So I think that it's a great project, and it's good to see, as I said, like I've done this stuff even in school. I related projects where I did full on event plans for environmental music festivals, kind of. I was really stoked to see everything that you do out here, and I hope that you can grow this project, Digital Hobo, and get into more communities. But you are a great part of the Bow Valley scene here. So tell us some of the local musicians, venues, or businesses that have had the biggest impact on your career growth so far.
Well, I'd like to give a big shout out to a couple of organizations first and foremost. I think anybody that lives in the Bow Valley and either um, goes to, like consumes art in any form or produces art in any form knows about Arts Place. So the great team at Arts Place, Jeremy Elborn and all the staff there, they've really become a hub of the community in the Bow Valley. They provide a venue and an opportunity for local musicians like myself to perform. They put on great visual art exhibits. I can't say enough about Arts Place, and the longer I'm here and the more that I integrate into the arts community, the more I see them as really key to keeping things going. And the second shout out is Biosphere Institute. Biosphere are a not-for-profit organization, and they're focusing their efforts um, on helping us have a more sustainable culture and a more sustainable infrastructure right here in the Bow Valley with regard to all kinds of things, recycling, um, managing wildlife interactions. They've got a really good wildlife program for that. And then with respect to climate change, they're putting on some great events and making a real difference in helping us reduce our emissions while raising our awareness about climate change. So I've found Biosphere to be, for me, as an artist that is concerned with environmental issues and actually writes about it, having an organization like Biosphere out there has been key. So there you go. There's two of them.
Yeah, that's great. Like I said, I love seeing that as well. As I was telling you before we hopped on, I worked a bit with Folk Fest last year and the executive director there. So when I saw the Biosphere doing the green team there, I made sure to connect with Jackie there. And it's great to see them. When I was doing stuff with Surfrider Foundation out west, maybe I could connect you with them if you ever wanted to head out west. I used to bring the chair onto my radio show all the time and promote all their causes, all their missions, take people there, beach cleans. And yeah, it's always great when they get involved with things like this, and it's a great collaboration between music and environmental awareness. I always think it's yeah, a lot can happen through that. So I asked this about everybody else as well when I interview them. who are some of the major influences that inspired your musical style? Like you talked about doing blues and old love songs, you got some reggae vibes going in there. So who are the biggest influence you have in your music?
It's a pretty long list. I've been listening to music since I was 8. Uh, I guess the two, maybe the ones that I should mention are the ones that I think uh, kind of bubble up to the surface in my own music that I'm writing these days. So I'd have to say Bob Marley would be one, and Joe Strummer from The Clash would be another. Both those folks, even though they're not with us anymore, unfortunately, I have a huge amount of respect for both musically and ethically. Yeah, good people.
All right, so those were some great answers for your musical influences. I think Bob Marley has influenced everybody who has ever listened to Bob Marley in life personally. So yeah, I really love those answers. And next, we are Rocky Mountain Live. So this is another question I ask all my guests. What do you love most about performing live?
Two things. I should probably say first that performing live um, is a lot of like sitting on uh, in cars and airplanes and then hauling equipment around and doing sound checks and sitting alone in hotel rooms and a lot of stuff that it isn't all that fun. But once you're in front of the audience and once you're in that moment, once you're in the now of the music, it can be just wonderful. But for me, the best part of performing live happens after the show when people come up to me and they say, "Hey, you know that lyric that you did in the first set? Do you remember that line?" And then they'll recite the line to me. And then they tell me what it meant to them. And that's um, a, it's just a confirmation for artists that they're actually reaching someone because quite often you have no immediate evidence of that. You're looking down into black space, the lights are on you. You can't see the faces or the expressions of the people that you're playing to. So yeah, when someone comes up to me after and says, "Hey, that was great. I really feel energized by what you're saying, and I heard your message, and that lyric was incredible, or that guitar lick was incredible." That to me is the why I do it. And that I would say there's one other thing too. Um, Performing live becomes a really powerful moment when you get a large group of people singing together. It's almost like a collective spiritual experience when we're all singing the same thing at the same time, and there's this immediate bond that feels very transcendent and very special that I never experience in any other aspect of my life. So sing-alongs are great. I love getting the crowd singing.
Yeah, those are some great answers there. I often find that like it's very similar, a lot of the answers to that question, but like the way people word it and how they connect to the audience is a little different every time. So I really love that question every time. So another one I like to ask everybody. So you've already given us some of your musical influences, but who are some of the top musicians or bands that you dream of sharing the stage with? Are there any other environmental activists through music that you'd like to collaborate with in the future?
Well, it's funny. The musicians that I want to be on stage with are usually the ones I'm on stage with because it's so special. And I don't generally have I don't suffer from, fantasizing about being famous and and being on stage with certain people. But you and I were talking before the interview, and we found out that we both share a love for Michael Franti's music. So, yeah, I'll say I'd love to be on the stage with 6'7" Michael Franti and just jamming with him. That'd be great.
Yeah, do you ever see as well Jack Johnson? He's a bit of an environmentalist and he has a program going down in Hawaii. Have you seen anything that he does?
Well, I've been listening to Jack Johnson's music for a while now. Um, I have to say I haven't been following him recently, but I do know that he's got like he has some environmental movements that he supports and some not-for-profits, and he's a very kind of greenly configured kind of guy.
Yeah, him and his wife, they started the Kokua Hawaii Foundation supporting environmental education in Hawaii. So, and I know that I think he did like a little music festival at once, all in support of that down Hawaii as well. It's a really cool program. So, yeah, that's one I really like is Jack Johnson and all the work he does in that regard as well. I like to ask this as well. So I want to know other Rocky Mountain or even just Western Canadian artists or bands that you want to give shout outs to for their work in the local scene. Maybe some Bow Valley artists that do a lot of good in our community as well, and that you'd like to see covered by Rocky Mountain Live. Maybe hop on an interview with me here sometime.
I'd love to share that with you. The list is long. As you know, there's a lot of creative people doing a lot of work right here in the Bow Valley. Um, I would say for you, Kyle Pullen is a wonderful guitar player and an incredible musical talent. I would get him on this podcast and interview him. Julie Chang is another one. Irene Poole, I guess you've just done an interview with her. She's a great talent. And how about Phil Nugent? Phil's a, a very like he's a great songwriter and a really diverse performer. You know, he just finished the Simon and Garfunkel show at Carter Ryan, and he's always got some really interesting stuff on the go. I would also recommend Nurjana. Nurjana is a great writer, great performer. Couple of people that I play with regularly, Ted Woodhouse and Sue Panning, were in a band that we call ourselves Brand New Companions. They would be they're great talents. There's just so many. You know, the list. I didn't even touch Banff yet. Banff has a lot of great players and people that are contributing to the music scene.
Yeah, for sure. There is a very large amount of people to get through. It's even just in Canmore. So yeah, I actually did a great interview with Phil as well. So that was released about 3 weeks to a month ago. Yeah, it's an amazing interview. He's a great guy, great performer. That Simon and Garfunkel show was amazing. My girlfriend and I went and saw that. So yeah, that's a great list that you just gave there. I actually met Kyle at the Canmore Brewing Company's grand finale last week that I saw you at as well. And yeah, we've talked about getting him on so as well, so we will work on that list for sure. So you do a lot of great work in the community. Your music is often about changing the world. So we want to know, do you think that music can change the world?
Very, very simple question to ask, a very complex question to answer. I think ultimately most musicians they write and perform music because they have some hope or some aspiration that there's someone on the other end listening to it, and that potentially you can have some kind of hopefully positive effect on their lives and through them, through the wider community, and then through them, the wider world. That's what we all aspire to. Um, but to be totally honest with you, sometimes we're just not sure. Sometimes we put this music out and it feels like it's kind of going into a void or going into a vacuum. And if we don't hear that feedback from our audience and get kind of affirmation and confirmation that people are hearing what we're laying down, it can become really hard. So I what I do when I have those, I call them moments of doubt, and we all have those. I go back and I look at the lineage of other great singer-songwriters and performers that have done this in the past. And, we already mentioned one of them. We both have a common love for Bob Marley's music. But look at the history and the tradition of protest music. You've got uh, Bob Dylan writing "Blowing in the Wind." You've got Pete Seeger writing a song like "If I Had a Hammer." You've got Woody Guthrie and his song "Dust Bowl Refugee," and all the great songs that Bruce Cockburn, our Canadian legend Bruce Cockburn, came out with in his long career. I mean, these are all people that are great musicians in their own right, but they would also be, um, I guess, categorized as protest artists because they wrote protest music. So I think for me, I look back at that lineage, and that kind of gives me strength to continue, even though I'm doing it on a much smaller scale than they are. It helps to keep me going because it's proof that yeah, people do listen to this music, and that music can create change and propagate positive events throughout the world. And then what I try and do is I try and look at the past musicians and then sort of what's going on today. Like who are the people that are taking this moment 2025 where we've got a lot of stuff going on in the world and they're commenting on what they see musically. So I'm inspired by people, like Tamara Lindemann from the Weather Station. Her music is doing just that. There's a musician out of the West Coast, Canadian, named Luke Wallace. I listen to Luke a lot because his messages are clear and really focused on the environment. Uh, a musician that you may not have heard of, but that's doing great work is Sam Bardman from Winnipeg. And um, I just, for the first time, heard Eliza Gilkinson's new album, which is called Dark Ages. She's a Texas-based singer-songwriter that has been putting out top-notch music for a couple of decades now. And her new album, Dark Ages, is definitely worth a listen. So all of these people that I just mentioned are they're current, they're in the now, they're right here with us in 2025, commenting on what they see, and with the rise of autocracy and the rise of I call it attack of the killer billionaires. With all of this stuff going on, we need musicians now more than ever to comment on what we're seeing and to provide us comfort in these very, very dark times.
Yeah, that's a great answer there. I believe that like I think that all of us who love music to an insane degree that we try to make it our lives, whether it's being a musician or a marketer working in it, we want to think that music can change the world. I don't know how many times over my life I found a new amazing artist who has a great message in their music, but it's not what's popular these days. As you said in the beginning, it's kind of controlled by certain entities out there, and it's really hard for a lot of people to get their music and their message out there. And then you hear what's going on in popular radio sometimes, and it just like the topics and things that are discussed, just I don't know. I don't know how that's what is popular out there these days, and it's kind of hurts your soul at sometimes. So I think that music does change the world every day as it changes people. Whether that's for better or worse is up to that person to decide and the content that they consume. So yeah, that is a big question, and yeah, so I think it's up to each individual person to find the content that really resonates with them personally.
Mhm.
So thanks for your time today. I really appreciate you participating with this new platform. I'm a big fan of your message, your work, your events, everything that you do. So my last question is always this. So you're participating with Rocky Mountain Live now. So why do you think that this is an important project and other musicians, bands, venues, any music resource business around our communities should participate by creating their profiles and uploading their events?
I think that Rocky Mountain Live represents a new kind of media that it's not really new, but it's essential. It's this idea that people are making music for other people. And I sense that Jimmy, you're committed to doing that. You want to bring attention to the musician that is not a corporate entity. So, I mean, there's a lot of music that is made by corporations for corporate consumption to consumers, and we need to have other avenues for independent musicians to get their music and their message out. So that's why I think Rocky Mountain Live is important, and that's why, I want to support it to the best of my ability. And I urge people to keep listening to these interviews and to follow RML online and just share the love.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So we're gonna wind down here. Just want to let you have any last words that you want. Anything else you want to let people know, whether it's events, your social handles, your website, any last message so people understand the digital hobo ethos? What do you got for us?
Okay. I don't know if you folks can see that. It might be blurred or partly blurred.
There you go. It's a little bit better.
Okay. So my album just arrived in the mail this morning. So here it is. And I'm going to have it on May 31st at Banff Springs Hotel. Hope you can come and join us. It's called Climate Stories. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that we measured the amount of CO2 that we emitted during the recording process of that album, and it came to about 2 tons. So we're asking people to go online and make a pledge for reducing their own carbon footprint, bringing it down just that much. And if we all bring it down just that much, it'll all add up to 2 tons, and we can offset the CO2 that we produced when we recorded it. Most of those emissions were as a result of the electricity that we used in the studio, getting the musicians to and from the studio, and eating the food that we needed during the studio session. So you can read about all of that on my website, and I urge all of you to take the Climate Stories pledge.
All right, that's awesome. So all your socials are, I believe, Digital Hobo Music. Is that correct? All your
Yep.
Instagram.
Um, the website is digihobo.com. And if you look up Digital Hobo on Facebook or Instagram, you'll find me.
Perfect. That's awesome. Well, thank you for your time today. This is one of my favorite interviews yet for sure. I'll see you on May 31st and hopefully a lot of shows in the future as we move forward. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jimmy. You're awesome.